Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and welcome back to another Hump Day. Joining me as always is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our listeners. I think I have a pretty cute, fun joke for you.
Let's hear it.
What happens to an illegally parked frog?
Well, that's easy. They get used as bait. Is that too dark?
Just a little, but it usually gets towed away.
So, we'll keep with yours. For new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for that.
Voyse.
Damus.
That's right. We have no tea for Wednesdays.
No tea. It's Hydration Wednesdays.
Make sure you're drinking water.
I agree. It's too hot to not be. Well, while you enjoy your canister of water, because it really does look like a canister. It looks like you're going on a hiking trip.
We always are.
How much water do you think you're going to drink during these stories?
It's always good to be prepared.
Well, while you enjoy your canister of water, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story, am I the a-hole for using my daughter's tuition fees to pay for my son's legal fees? I, 27 female, have one son, 12 male, and one stepdaughter, 17 female, from my marriage to my late husband. My husband passed away a year and a half ago due to an illness that ruined us financially. He was the sole breadwinner while I was a stay-at-home mother, and we've had a lot of financial trouble since his death. My stepdaughter attended a private school, and my husband had money saved up to pay for her remaining tuition fees, as well as her future college education. My son recently got into some legal trouble involving drugs. I desperately need money to pay for a lawyer. I work 2 jobs, and it's still nowhere near enough to afford the legal fees. The only money available is my stepdaughter's private school fees. I tried talking to her and asking her if she would switch to a public school for her senior year so that I could use the money for my son's lawyer. She completely blew up at me. She accused me of stealing her money and purposely trying to derail her education and social life. She said her dad put her in private school because she was naturally smart and she needed to be in a good school surrounded by like-minded people. I told her that her life isn't over just because she has to spend 1 year at a public school. She can still hang out with her friends outside of school, and she'll likely get accepted into a good college anyways, and it's not like I'm taking her college money. But on the other hand, if my son goes to juvie, then his life might as well be ruined. I've been to juvie as a teenager, and it was an awful experience. I can't even imagine making a little boy go to such a traumatic place. My stepdaughter said she doesn't care about what happens to my son, and he shouldn't have broken the law if he didn't want to go to juvie. She said my son wasn't innocent and needs to face the consequences. I said she was nearly an adult, demonizing a young and impressionable child because she thinks that going to school with poor people is the worst thing in the world. Am I the a-hole?
There are certainly a lot of dynamics playing in the background of this story. The unfortunate one is the passing of the husband. It sounds like it's put everyone in a more difficult situation. I'm not certain of the age of the boy.
12.
That's pretty early to be getting into problems. But hey, if getting into some type of, I guess they're saying juvie, you do need to start facing some of the consequences. It does help you. It's not the end of the world. There are plenty of people who have walked through those circumstances as kids and they've come out better. But you do need to teach kids that there are consequences for their actions, regardless of the age. He's 12. That's old enough to start realizing that if I do drugs, not great things happen. I'm not certain as to what kind of drugs we're dabbling into, but I guess at 12, it doesn't really matter. It's not good for your developing brain. At the end of the day, I think everyone can agree with that. 12-year-olds shouldn't be touching drugs.
Agreed.
Now, she's going to take out the money that was partitioned away for the stepdaughter's education.
Correct.
And the stepdaughter is how old? 17?
17.
Okay, so she's nearing the end.
Correct.
She's about to go into that senior year, and she's believing ROP that money can easily just be wheeled and dealed wherever she sees fit. Not okay. That's not your money to touch. That was your late husband's money that he put aside for his daughter so she could continue her education. At the end of the day, that's what that's for. I understand she says she's working 2 jobs, so life's really hard right now. That can't be easy. You lost your husband, it sounds like, from what her words were, he was the main breadwinner and she was a stay-at-home. So she's doing her best. I can hear it, right? You're working 2 jobs. Your 12-year-old obviously isn't making the right decisions right now in life. The father passing away is probably not great for anybody. So it's a tough situation. Please get into family counseling. It sounds like everybody needs it. Not just the mother, not just the son, but that daughter also needs it. Her empathy level is surprisingly 0. And I'm not certain whether or not it's just because of the way the house has conducted themselves, the parents and how their ecosystem works. But it sounds like there is no care. And that's not okay for a 17-year-old to have anyway. Regardless, she is allowed to defend that money was set aside for a reason. And it sounds like her father had told her about that, which is a good thing. And your stepdaughter knew it. And she held you to task. And your best comeback to that was to chastise her on beliefs that she may or may not hold. That's unfounded. OP, you're an a-hole. I get that life is hard right now. But when money is put away for reasons, for kids, you need to honor that full-heartedly. That's what I believe. Now, if you're going homeless and some things are falling through, I'm not certain why you're having to work 2 jobs to maintain. You might have to start looking at getting into a situation that more fits your means. Get it to where you're above water. And if that means making some hard decisions about where you live and unfortunately, yes, if it does come to your daughter not being able to attend that sort of private school, maybe there's a way that you can get to wherever you're going to live next and get her into another private school. But at least have that money be used for what it was made for.
They're very interesting thoughts.
Again, I don't know the breadth of their financial problems, but I just hope that she can get to a point where it's above water. You're not having to make rash decisions on things that you shouldn't be making rash decisions on.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP is the a-hole. Redditors were saying that there's a purpose for that money. And the fact that OP would try and use it to give her son an easy way out, well, that's more of an injustice in raising your child. If you found juvie to be very traumatic and for you not to do illegal things again, maybe that's something your son also has to go through so that it learns not to make those same mistakes over and over again. Now, I will say, I'm going to bring up something that I know probably didn't hit the forefront when I was reading it to you. I have to wonder how old OP's late husband was.
Oh, you're talking about the age difference when you were reading it off to me?
Yes.
With the kids?
With the kids and with OP.
Initially,
that son is her son. That would make her 15 when she had that kid. And if that kid belonged to the late husband, that means he was dating a 15-year-old.
When you read me the ages initially, in back of my mind, I said, there's no way I'm possibly hearing this correctly, because yes, that would put her as a teenager. But apparently, if you're bringing it up, that means I was right as far as being caught off guard by that.
It's only a 10 years difference from her stepdaughter to her. And the one thing that I can say is when you're hitting around the same, 10 years is still a significant amount, but if our OP was 15, had a kid with this husband and married very young, I can understand why OP is not as mature as they should be.
Sure, I agree with that.
Just some food for thought. I find it, for me, gross. Now, mind you, OP could have had this child with someone else at 15 and then found her late husband later. There's no way for us to know. They don't provide those details. She also doesn't say how old her late husband was when he went. But it could also be another reason why, as you were saying, that that the 17-year-old doesn't have as much empathy, depending on how it is that her stepmother came into the picture, could also lead to why she doesn't care about her stepbrother or her stepmother.
Yeah. There's a lot in that story that's not filled out.
Agreed. Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about ultimatums. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband either he comes home or I'm done? I've been with my husband for 9 years now. I just gave birth to our son 5 months after years of infertility. We underwent 3 rounds of IVF before we had a pregnancy that stuck. 4 miscarriages. This was such a big turning point in our marriage. We got unbelievably closer despite all the grief. And for the first 3.5 months of our son's life, he was easily the most attentive and helpful man I have ever in my life met. Life was happy. Well, his mom all of a sudden came back into his life when our son was 3.5 months old. She moved back to our state She moved to Canada without him when he was 13 and has barely seen him or his siblings for 17 years. There have been multiple occasions where her presence has made me incredibly uncomfortable. Like, she has come here a good 5 to 6 times since our son was 3.5 months old. Never held the baby either. When my husband says, "Look, it's Grammy," his mom will raise her eyebrows and say, "Hi," before looking away. 99% of the time that she comes here, she asks my husband to go outside with her, away from me and the baby. And she started to ask my husband a lot to go to her place, and needless to say, me and the baby are never invited. He says that she's just trying to catch up with him and make up for lost time, but I'm honestly just done with it. Today was his only day off this week. The baby has a spiked fever and is super cranky. I had to call out of work for the past 3 days due to this. I work from home. The house is an absolute mess. I haven't showered in 4 days. I can't put the baby down without him screaming. I need help. Well, around 10 a.m., his mom calls and says she needs him because she has a surgery and needs a ride to and from. So he leaves. There was no prior notice. Well, he called me an hour ago and told me that her boyfriend is there too. So I asked him why he is still there when she clearly has a ride and a support system. He says that she asked him to be there and he wanted to be there for her. Well, he just called me again 10 minutes ago and tells me that she's in recovery and asked him not to leave. I told him that I really needed his help and that ever since his mother has popped back up, he's been MIA and I feel like I'm doing everything alone. He told me that he's sorry that I feel that way and that he wants to be home with us, but his mother needs him. I guess something inside me just broke when he said that because I'm telling him I needed him and his mom needing him is more important. So I told him if he didn't come home, I was done. I would file for divorce. I'm not playing second to a mother who ditched her kids off 17 years ago and has seen them all of twice since. Me needing his help is more important than his mother wanting him there when she already has support with her. He says, "Are you fucking serious?" And I just hung up. I hardly see this man anymore because of this woman, and I don't want to live a life like this anymore, even though it's only been a month and a half since this started happening. Am I the a-hole? The hospital is only 15 minutes from us, so if he's not back in 30 minutes, I'm packing my stuff.
I think what this story comes down to for me is you can care about the people in your life. It's important to. Your mother said she needed a ride to and from. She was going into surgery. Okay. That's a 15... She clarifies for us. That's a 15-minute drive away from the hospital that they're at. I don't see why you couldn't have gone, picked your mother up, dropped her off at the hospital, got everything correct for the surgery, as far as paperwork is concerned, and then checked out the second her boyfriend got there. Your wife, who just gave birth, who has had multiple miscarriages, I'm sorry to hear about that, but they finally got one to stick, and she just gave birth 3 months ago. She hasn't taken a shower or bathed in 4 days. That's pretty extreme.
The child's still sick.
She's called out 3 days. I don't understand why he couldn't have called out one of those days. You know, like back and forth it. There is no give and take here. It sounds like someone's shouldered the burden while her husband is, I guess, trying to renew his relationship with his mother. But there's a time and a place. There was 17 years to do that before this moment. You started a family. Your wife and your baby come first, especially when your mother does have a support system. It isn't like she counted on solely just you. So I don't know why there can't be give and take unless the husband didn't want this, because that's what it comes down to for me. That's an easy decision any day. Your wife's at home. The baby has a fever. It's been going for 3 days. She probably hasn't had sleep. If she's calling out of work for 3 days and she works from home, okay, that's another thing. That should be an easy situation. But if she's not getting enough sleep where she can't even work from home, that should tell you as her partner that things have gotten pretty bad. Your mother is just fine in a hospital, probably the best place she can be in recovery. She was just fine without you for 17 years. She can go a couple hours while you're dealing with what's going on at home. I almost feel like there's a possession going on here.
I find it funny that you say that because our OP provided some context that the mother hasn't reached out to her other daughters, strictly just her sons and one other youngest.
Interesting. I understand that when people come back into your life initially, I guess I would say for some, not all. Initially, you want to just let the past be the past. And normally the people who have done those things are more than happy to gravitate to those type of people because they don't have to fess up or understand or take responsibility for the decisions that they've made in their lives. That's what the son has done here. Apparently everything is hunky-dory, especially if they're spending that much time together. Now, I can't truly be in their heads to understand what's going on, whether it's because he really does genuinely want that relationship with his mother, or if it's because he just doesn't want to be in the home because he didn't want that child. You could be dealing with a lot. I don't know. But it sounds like things are piling up and it's getting out of control. She's at the point now where she said she'd rather just dissolve the marriage and go her separate ways. 3 months into a baby, you guys have struggled 9 years to get. And 1 month into this relationship with the mother, she's willing to move on from it. That's pretty dramatic. Not like she's dramatic. What I mean is that's a very dramatic place to be.
Let me give you an edited to add by your OP. They said, I own a property that I rent out for Airbnb. That's where I will be going. No, I don't have a support system. I grew up in the foster care. My biological mother died during childbirth and my dad didn't want me. I was never adopted out. My best friend moved 2 years ago. It's just me and used to be my husband.
Well, now that fills in the rest of this. There is no support system for her. I guess the one source of income outside of her job would be the Airbnb, and now she's going to live in it. So that's not another source of income anymore.
I just have to question the husband at that point when your wife is giving you that essential ultimatum. You come home and you actually help me or I'm leaving, and the fact that he doesn't.
At the end of the day, you know that your wife needs help. That's where the buck stops. Your mom has a support system. Your wife needed that. She's making moves now where she doesn't need you anymore. She already outlined it. She's already lived this life. She was in the system. I'm telling you, that type of woman, what I think is going to happen is when she's made up her mind, it's done. So you've effectively ruined your, I would hope for 9 years of loving marriage, especially if you're trying 4 times for a child. Those injections are painful. So I'm shocked at the end that this is how something with so much hope and intent gets ended from someone who's been gone for 17 years. Which leads me back to, I wonder if the husband ever wanted this, or if this is something that ROP wanted and he was just okay to go along with the ride till it started becoming real. You hear the baby crying at night, people lose sleep, right? That's when rubber meets road. It either makes you stronger or it breaks you down. And sometimes we need our partner to help lift us back up. That should have been your role, but you'd rather be sitting at the hospital for the safest place for your mother to be at after a surgery and do what? Catch up? She's probably sleeping a lot. It's a surgery, but we make the choices we do in life. Just because you're a bad husband doesn't mean you can't be a good parent, though. At least he has that to look forward to. I don't know. There's no good feeling that comes out of this. It's rough either way, but OP, you are not the a-hole.
The consensus on Reddit is that our OP is not the a-hole. In fact, many Redditors felt that our OP is justified after hearing a lot of the details. Let me go ahead and provide you with another last edit/update. Our OP said, on my way to the Airbnb now. The last phone call I received was him telling me his mother would be discharged within the hour and he would be home after dropping her off. Her boyfriend, who lives with her, is still at the hospital. He could drive her, but mommy wants her precious son too, so I'm leaving. Thank you everyone who took the time to comment. I will update as the night progresses. However, that was the last update.
Okay.
There was one Redditor that said OP should take drastic measures, like stealing his car keys to make sure that he stays home. Our OP responded to that and said, what? No. I mean, it might look better to you, and I'm sure a lot of other people, but like stealing his car keys and then having to deal with the mental backlash when he freaks out isn't something I want to deal with. I would rather just leave. I'm not broken. I'm not incapable. Do I need help? Yes. But if I'm on my own and know he isn't coming back, then it would be a lot easier to deal with alone than it would be if I'm expecting him to walk through the door and he just doesn't. Does that make sense? I'm waiting for him here. I don't want to wait anymore. If I'm gone, I'm no longer waiting. I'm no longer looking out that window searching for his truck, thinking help is on the way.
That's the mindset of a winner. And yeah, don't ever force someone to stay somewhere or do anything in life. That is terrible advice. Why would you ever? Yes, she needs help, but she's not forcing people.
She just doesn't want to look out the window hoping that it comes when it doesn't.
Yep.
I definitely feel for our OP. It sounds like she's a fighter, though.
Hell yeah.
And if anything, good on you for your decisions. It looks like from how she was explaining in the comments, she's got 2 sources of income. Yeah, she'll be using the Airbnb, but she still has her actual work. And I feel like no matter what decision she makes, she'll definitely come out on top.
Bad days don't stay around forever.
Well, let's go on to our next story and see what you think about certain criterias to meet when going to a wedding. Am I the a-hole for refusing to attend my friend's man-free wedding? English is not my first language. Apologies for any mistakes. My 30 female friend, Lisa, 34 female, is marrying her fiance, Sophie, 35 female, in 2 months. I've known both of them for several years, and I am, or at least was until this whole debacle, quite close with Lisa, so I was not surprised that they've invited me to the wedding. However, on the invitation, it was noted that it's a man-free event, meaning that no men are allowed to be there. Despite not being a man myself, I felt that it was a weird decision on their part. I'm also on good terms with Lisa's brother, 28 male, so I texted him to ask if he knows what's up with that whole thing, and if at least the bride's families are exceptions to the no men rule. Apparently, both him and his and Lisa's father are not invited. He doesn't know about Sophie's family, but assumes it's the same with them. And he has no idea what prompted the rule. He says that at present it was, in my opinion understandably, turned into a whole family dispute. I think I wouldn't have gone anyway, because not allowing the presence of any man at all just feels weird to me, but especially in light of the information I got from Lisa's brother. I called her to say that I will be, unfortunately, unable to attend. She asked me why, and I tried to make up a good excuse, but I'm a shitty liar. So after she pressed me for a reason, I told her the truth, that I think the no men rule is weird, and I don't want to be involved in that. I did not tell her that I contacted her brother, just that I'm not a fan of events segregated by gender. Lisa has told me that I'm not being a good friend to her because I'm not supportive of her and Sophie wanting their wedding to be fully centered on women. I told her that it would be centered on women anyway, considering that both of the people getting married are women. She hung up, and I have not heard from her since, but Sophie has been sending messages saying I have internalized misogyny. I personally think I behaved reasonably, but Lisa and Sophie evidently disagree. So am I the a-hole in this situation?
Absolutely not, OP. Look, it's your wedding. It's your rules. You're also, though, as the person being invited, allowed to not accept the invitation for whatever reason. It goes both ways. You don't owe someone your presence. Do I agree with outlawing any person based off of any certain thing outside of the content of their character? No, but you are your own person. You're allowed to make your decisions. In the moment, you were just trying to be nice and declining the invitation, and then they pressed. Don't ask questions you don't want answers to. She is correct. This is going to be centered around women because there are 2 women that are getting married. That's fantastic. But I couldn't imagine being told by our son that when he eventually gets married in the future, if he does, that's his choice. He comes to me and says, there are no women allowed at my wedding. And then I have to come to you, or that you know that information.
And I, as a mother, cannot at least be there to support my son.
How gutted would you be just because your gender? Not the content of your character. Not who you are as a person. That's terrible.
Heartbreaking.
OP, I don't believe you are the a-hole.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. And for a lot of Redditors, they just reiterated that is really weird rule for a wedding, and that's kind of discriminatory. For other individuals, they actually had questions if Lisa or Sophie had any type of traumatic past with men. Our OP answered and said to the best of their knowledge, they've never had any type of traumatic instances. In fact, when our OP had pressed her as to why it is that there's this specific rule, the only thing that Lisa kept saying was that it's supposed to be centered around women. That's the only reason. I have in my mind taken this and said, insert anything here. Rather than man-free, have a disability-free wedding. Have a wedding where you can't be under 6 foot. Have a wedding where you can't be over a certain amount of weight. All of it hits the same. It's very insulting. There are things that people cannot control. Now, mind you, it's the same for every wedding. You're allowed to invite who you want, but to actually put on an invitation that it is free of something, of a characteristic, just a physical trait, that's it. And to exclude those people, to me, shows a very nasty character in that person. You can be proud of yourself as a man or as a woman. You can be proud of yourself for being tall. You can be proud of yourself for being short, for being fast, and for being slow. What you shouldn't be allowed to do is judge others and make them feel excluded because they have traits that you do not. I think a lot of people forget that. Our world is beautiful because it's full of men and women, tall, short, big, small. They all have so many wonderful characteristics. Unless you're talking about a flaw in character where they treat someone in such nasty ways, where they do not have respect for others, where they cause drama, or where they make things about themselves because they are self-centered and narcissistic, those are valid reasons for not inviting specific people. And you're allowed to do that. But know that as a person, when you exclude swaths of people, you're becoming the toxic person that you hate when people are toxic to you about. I read this and it hits so wrong on so many levels. I can't think of it in any other way and would be okay with it. Now, there are probably going to be some people who would see this as no different than child-free. But the one thing that I can say about child-free weddings, they just want children's noises to just not be there. That's the only reason why I've ever heard of people wanting child-free weddings. They don't want a bunch of children crying while they're taking photos and videos. It's never hardly been, at least in my opinion, because people hate children. They just want to make the moment quiet and intimate. Our OP, while they might have been invited, they don't need to be made to feel bad for not accepting an invitation, especially when it's against their core values of what they feel is wrong and right. That is another faux pas that was done by one of the brides. You try to make a guest feel bad for not accepting your invitation because you created the problem by putting that criteria in place.
Yeah, if you don't share my values, you're the problem.
Well, let's go on to our next situation.
Yeah, we can just go on from that.
We're just going to go to the next one. And this one, I think, is quite interesting. We're going to fast forward to the honeymoon, I think, for our next story. Am I the a-hole because I went on my honeymoon without my brand new wife since she had to take care of her sister? Hi.
No.
Mm-hmm.
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 I'm not going to say it this time.
You're not going to say it. You're such a fibber. I know you are. I am posting this here.
Hi.
Oh my goodness. I am posting this here after it got removed from AITA because there is going to be an update after my wife comes home, I think. I just got married. My wife, Tanya, basically raised her sister, Marie, after their mom passed away. Even after their dad remarried, Tanya and her sister were more mom-daughter than sisters. Marie got married last year and she got pregnant right away. No, not before. They figured they got pregnant on their honeymoon. Marie went into premature labor at our wedding reception. She gave birth to a tiny but healthy baby girl. And for some reason, Tanya decided that she needed to take care of her. We were supposed to leave for our honeymoon 2 days after our wedding, but Tanya said she couldn't just leave. She isn't a doctor or a nurse. Marie has a dad, a stepmom, a husband, a mother, and a father-in-law. I don't understand why she had to go, but we had non-refundable tickets, and insurance didn't cover I have to stay and take care of my sister as part of the coverage. Plus, I had booked 2 weeks off for my wedding and honeymoon. So since I was going to be home by myself doing nothing while my wife was in another city doing whatever, I went on the honeymoon by myself. I got a massive bed all by myself. I used all the resort credits that were for couples massages, romantic excursions, and special meals on deep sea fishing and a dune buggy tour of the island. I just got back and my wife is still with her sister, but she is upset that I went on our honeymoons by myself. Was I supposed to let the money go to waste? Was I supposed to sit at home playing Diablo while I waited for her to be done? We are fighting about it. My friends all agree that I would have been dumb to waste the money and my time off. Her friends think I was a dick to go enjoy myself while she is taking care of her sister and a new baby. I will add that there is no place for me to stay at Marie's house. Tanya is sleeping in the nursery since the baby is still in the NICU. Am I the a-hole?
I'm very sorry to hear about the baby. It sounds like, though, there's a good chance that it survives. Do they update us on that?
Yes.
Oh.
It's just fine.
Oh, okay, good. I'm happy the baby's okay. So let's get to this story, though, because this one's interesting in the fact that my logical brain is overriding all the emotional side right now.
I'm probably more logical on this front than I am emotional, but let's hear what you have to say.
Well, logical side says ROP is correct. Those plans that close to the time that you're about to have them, they're not refundable at all. He says the tickets, the hotel, the excursions, all of that stuff has to be probably planned like 6 months out.
At least.
Maybe even more depending on the location. So the money's gone. Someone might as well enjoy it. He is correct. There's a big old support system for that sister. I understand based off of the way the relationship is structured that the sister, his wife, believes that she's basically a mom to her sister. So she's very close to the point where I guess it feels like she needs to stay there and take care of her as a mom would. Is she helping the situation at all? Because he already quantifies she's not a doctor. She's not a nurse. She's just there.
And not even at the NICU. She's just sitting in the baby's nursery.
That might lead me to ask more questions about the healthiness of the relationship. Not OP and his wife, but his wife and his sister. Why do you feel like you have to hold on that tightly? Do you feel like you'll be abandoning your sister? Does it feel that way when you don't think you'll be there when she needs you to be? Because a steady phone call check-in every once in a while you're on your honeymoon would probably have been more than sufficient, especially just for 2 weeks. What is it exactly that your wife is going through that she believes she has to hold that tightly? Because it's unhealthy in my opinion. If the parties in this can't understand that that was a wedding and that they have a honeymoon that they paid for that they cannot get out of, and that they're all feeding back into his wife that he's in the wrong, that spells disaster. No one can be logical about it. It just has to be him and his side. I can just see a lot of arguments over something that starts and finishes first with the relationship between the wife and her sister. Because I think that's it could be definitely hinging on unhealthy. Yes, you are close to your sister, but you don't owe her sleeping in her nursery while things are going on. I mean, you should have been able to live your life and have your honeymoon, especially when you put in the time for and the effort and the money, but you didn't. And now you're using it as something to guilt your husband in because he wanted to enjoy it. I imagine myself on a honeymoon. What a weird predicament where you're like, look, I'm not wasting this. I'm going.
You took time off and you paid for it?
You go, but you don't have your wife. All the packages are a honeymoon, and the places you go, the locations do know that. So you're there alone. Should you care about what other people think? No, but it always does play in your back of your mind every once in a while. It must look weird for me to walk into this couple's massage
and it's just me.
It's just me.
I think I find the situation also interesting because this emergency happened during the wedding reception.
Yeah. OP, I don't believe you are the a-hole. I do believe, though, that your wife needs to go get into some counseling.
The consensus on Reddit is our OP's not the a-hole. Now, I just want to clarify this one piece of detail that you're not aware of, but you'll understand it when it comes to what Redditors were saying. OP confirmed that they are technically not legally married. They were doing the ceremony first and then would get legally married after the honeymoon.
Well, why?
I guess you'll find out later. Now, the reason why I say this is because many Redditors said, look, this is a very one-sided relationship. Just how you're explaining it, it sounds like she's got some weird bond with her sister. And if she can't pull away from it, this spells doom for your marriage. Get an annulment or make sure that the marriage license doesn't go through, because if she's not prepared to be married with you, it's never going to happen until she is ready, and you can't force it to be faster. Now, just to provide from other Redditors, because this is a very big world and many emergencies have happened on special days and occasions and before people's trips, people were saying, look, I've had emergencies happen where family members were supposed to leave for trips. I've insisted that they go on their trip because I had someone already there. Yes, it's a very scary thing. We would keep them up to date. Enjoy your trip. Our OP's not the a-hole, because if I, as a person who was in the middle of this traumatic scenario, can understand that my family had made these plans and I am trying to be loving and considerate of them, and they're trying to love me back, but I know it's not good to cancel everything because you don't know what the future might hold. And yes, the most scary things can happen, but it shouldn't stop you from those plans. Now, there were other people that came forward and they said, look, sometimes individuals just try and insert themselves into situations, and harsh as it is, they aren't truly needed. It's not about them. It's about whatever's going on with that specific family member. And if they try and make it about them, then it becomes a problem. I actually have an update for you on this whole situation.
Oh.
Just as our OP promised at the beginning of his post. Let me go ahead and read that now. They said, the baby, Emily, is home and healthy, just tiny. My sister-in-law kicked my wife out the day the baby came home. Tanya wouldn't let her do anything. Marie told her that she had plenty of help. Tanya said she didn't mind sticking around. Marie told her that her and her husband did have a problem with it. Marie also told all her relatives that if Tanya was staying with them, they weren't allowed over until she left. Tanya asked if I would mind if she rented an Airbnb so she could stay nearby. I said I would prefer if she came home. We had an argument. I said that we should just not actually get married if this was going to be my life. Tanya came home to fight face to face. We had the fancy wedding and reception in Iowa for her family. We were going to get officially married in Colorado after we got back from the honeymoon. She wants to know why I'm having second thoughts. I showed her the original post and how almost 50% of the comments were calling for an annulment. I said we are both young and can walk away without losing much. All of the gifts are in her dad's garage, and they are easy enough to return. I said that there was no way I was going to put up with being the third wheel in our marriage. She has agreed to start going to counseling, and we are going to hold off on getting the paperwork settled for 1 year to give her a chance to decide what she wants. If she says that her sister comes first after 1 year, then I'm out. That's all. No more drama. Thanks for everyone who told me where I stood. I love Tanya, but I love myself too. Everyone who said I was an a-hole for not understanding why she was needed can suck it.
Anyone who said that clearly didn't understand how the room was supposed to be read. Even the sister comes back and kicks her out immediately. He's like, we don't need your help.
You have the woman that is worried the most about this baby saying, leave.
Yep.
Get out. You're not welcome. And Tanya's taking it to such a next level that she wants to rent an Airbnb, spend more money on top of what they spent for a honeymoon she didn't even go on, just to be close by where she's not invited. It's absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, it even goes beyond that, though. She tells other family members, if you house her, you cannot come and see the baby. I am, though, happy. He does say she's going to get into counseling. There is something there. I was trying to be nice about it, but
oh,
everyone else
I
was
definitely felt it. If anything, the situation is we're not in it. We don't know how the relationship was between the sisters, if they were very close or if they're not. Apparently, they're not very close, and it sounds like Tanya's very much smothering Marie. And that's important for us as the reader to understand. This is not an invited relationship. It's one that's being forced on another, and that's not healthy. Additionally, I think it's very good that OP has, one, taken the advice where Tanya should get counseling and that Tanya's agreeing to it, and then knows what they want. that in 1 year, if Tanya cannot prioritize their relationship as a couple, then that's not a relationship that they want to be in.
At least she's open to the counseling. Hopefully they can work it out. And if they can't, some people are just meant to be in your life to help you grow.
I agree. Well, let's go on to our very last story. And I found a new fun forum called Traumatize Them Back.
What?
Yes.
Traumatize someone back.
Yeah, Traumatize Them Back. I'm so excited because our Damas After Dark is going to have a couple of stories from this specific forum that I'm really excited to share.
I think I've had enough internet for today.
Well, let's go on to our last story. So why would you do that to my wife? So a few years ago, my hubby, 39 male, and I, 45 female, went bar hopping in our town. We ended up at a small bar and ran into one of my husband's brother's friends. We were all in a back patio area standing around and talking to the group. We did introduction because it was my first time meeting everyone. At this point, everyone knew I was married, etc. While we were talking, my husband was standing across from me, and we were still talking to the group in a sort of a circle. All of a sudden, I felt hands on my back, giving me a back rub. Full on squeeze the shoulders back rub. I kind of froze, but gave my husband bug eyes, trying to tactfully tell him something was wrong. He gave me a funny look because he wasn't quite sure what was wrong. The guy stopped rubbing my shoulders and walked away. My husband walked over to me and asked what was wrong. I told him exactly what happened. He responded, "Well, let me go do that to him." So he walked up behind the guy, who was about 10 feet away from me with his back to us. My hubby started rubbing his back. He asked him, "This is kind of weird, isn't it?" The guy said, "Yeah." Then my hubby said, "I bet you don't like it, huh?" The guy said, "No." Then my husband yelled, "Then why the fuck would you do that to my wife?" I think the guy was so drunk he didn't even realize whose back he was rubbing. Not an excuse. He acted completely shocked and scared. After a bit of a verbal scuffle with the group, the guy was sent home by security and they asked us to leave out the front. This reaction by my husband was the best though. He could have punched him, but this was so much better. I still laugh about it to this day.
That's a fantastic story. I might like this genre. Hey, if you don't want it done to you, why would you do it to someone else? It's a really good fundamental thing to live by. He says he was really drunk, and you are correct. There is no excuse for that. Even if you are drunk, you keep your hands to yourself, especially when you're in a public setting at a bar. You're
with people you know and people that you understand are in relationships with others.
You are asking for trouble. And she's right. She's lucky he didn't just go up and punch him, because a lot of people would have done that. A lot of people were resorted to physical violence. Instead, he gave him back the weird shoulder massage in a bar.
It was so funny when I read this, and I read that first part where he said, "Well, let me go do that to him." As a reader, I went, huh?
Yeah. And instead of that situation scarring your wife or making a really bad memory, all she thinks about is how her husband gave someone back their own medicine, and it completely turned that situation around.
Oh, hands down. If anything, one Redditor said, "Your husband is a rock star."
Yeah.
And our OP said, "I completely agree."
That's being supportive.
I was so excited to share this one.
That's a good one. I like that.
See? Not as bad as you thought it was going to be.
What's this forum called again?
It's called Traumatize Them Back.
Traumatize Them Back.
A little tit for tat, but in a fun way, I think.
I agree. Was that our last story?
That was our last story.
What a fantastic way to end Wednesday. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, traumatize them back. Don't.
You see in the world what you carry in your heart.
Yeah, exactly. That needs to be on a shirt.
Traumatize
them back.
I agree.
Team Money. If you get the reference, let me know.
Oh, please do. If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Mondays and Wednesdays. And on our Patreon, we have Damas After Dark, where we have more of these fun episodes like Traumatize Them Back.
Yes, every Friday where we start off the weekend just right.
We would also love to thank all of our Patreons for all of your support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you.
Mwah!
Well, as always, listeners, we look forward to hearing your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
I like the last one.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to show people a little piece of their own medicine.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been a fly on a wall in that situation, though. The look on the guy's face.
That probably is the most awkward, interesting, befuddled feeling in the world to have someone who you don't know, who you did not request this from, rubbing your shoulders in a public setting at a bar.
With like friends around you who's watching this.
And you see to your right or left your significant other, so you know it's not them. The fact that she held her composure and didn't outright start a problem, because a lot of people, that's justified. Don't put your hands on people.
Yep. Nope.
The fact that she stayed above board like that, handled that with class.
But the fact that she gave her husband a cue and he picked up that there was something that was wrong. He didn't see it, but it didn't mean that he didn't pick up that there was something that was wrong right then and there. And he went up to her and cared enough to ask her what happened, as well as make that right decision afterward.
Good partner. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I want a back rub now.
Jazz fingers.